I want to start off by saying Armand is a liar and the truth is not in him. Nothing in this world will make me believe that he cared one bit about Claudia biting the dust. All the puns intended, y'all. Every single pun I intend. Y'all know what time it is. We are back to talk Interview with a Vampire, Season 2, Episode 7. I could not prevent it. The first lie, okay, of the episode. But it sounds good, Armand. But you art a villain. No one will make me believe otherwise. So the episode opens and we know that after the little impromptu double date, Madeline, Louis, and Claudia have been sacked and bagged, beat down and broken, set on the stage at Theater des Vampires to await trial. Right? So we know that. So Malloy opens this episode basically saying, anyone want to start? Who wants to start? Who wants to tell this story? And so we go back to Paris and we see that they are literally beating the brakes off Louis. They're beating the brakes off of him, stomping him, doing all the things, and feeding Claudia alive to the rats. And he couldn't help her. He says he was just consumed, really. He didn't give a F about anything else. Louis was concerned about saving Claudia. We come back present day and discover, honey, there was a whole script. And you're not going to make me believe Armand didn't know about it. A fully written, rehearsed play all around this trial that they had been working on forever. And you mean to tell me that Armand didn't know? Sell it to somebody else, because I'm not buying that one bit. So now we're back in Paris. They're on the stage and they're trying to prove their case, because people in the audience are responsible for pronouncing judgment and sentencing, as we later discover in the episode. And so the advocate, okay, Santi, is basically breaking down the charges to the people. They'll have to make a decision and we see what happens after that, right? But anytime Claudia and Louis try to speak, immediately the coven confuses their minds, right? So the coven are all in full regalia as judges presiding over, the trial. So, they're like, baby Claudia, we don't need your words. Santi says, listen, we have all your journals right there, baby. They got the journals framed. All 2011 of them, all right? They are framed. And says, Claudia, we don't need to hear anything out of your mouth, okay? And in this moment, the moment we've all been waiting for, Lestat is approaching. He's making his way to that stage. And Louis says, I know I'm sitting here on trial for my life. My daughter, niece, sister is about to be unalived. But all I can think about, honey, is that man. Lestat is in the room. Okay, Lestat gets there and we know what this was going to be. But when I say Sam Reed did his big one as Lestat, now everything Lestat sold, I believed it. I'm going to just set it right there. Okay, I believed everything Lestat came in there and did and said. I do. Call me wrong if you want to in the comments. We can definitely have a discourse about that. And so Lestat comes in and does exactly what we know he's going to do, which is have the audience eating out of the palm of his hands. I mean, he's cracking jokes. He's doing all the things. And we know that he is there to kind of form this case against Louis and Claudia. For a while, especially in those first couple minutes, Lestat doesn't even look at Louis. And I think he knows that the moment that he looks into Louis's eyes, it's over. Ain't no scripting, Lestat. Ain't no scripting, Lestat. And again, as far as Armand, still dirty, low down, premeditated. So we go back present day and Daniel is breaking down exactly what Armand did. So he colluded with the coven, honey. He set you up. He participated in all this. And immediately Louis comes to his defense. And I'm like, okay, Daniel says, Armand screwed you, Claudia, Madeline, everybody to save his own britches. And Louis said he was under a lot of pressure. Louis, cut that out. I don't need any more of you defending these people. That's what I don't need. And so now we start to hear the whole history of Lestat, right? Because Santi has got to paint a clear picture for the people. So we go back, honey, and find out about Lestat's first love that we met very early this season, Nicholas, right? Who Armand immediately was jealous of. And basically Lestat says, yeah, and he was given over to madness. Well, Santi says it, and he unalived himself, and Lestat says, not so fast. He didn't do it by himself. He had help. Immediately panning over to Armand. And then we see Armand, quote unquote, under guard by Sam. Please give me a break. Give me a break, y'all. Armand wasn't under guard by nobody. This is all a farce, okay? And so we find out, though, that after Nicholas gave himself to the fire, unalived himself, Lestat buried himself for 100 years. Honey, he said he was in that ground and all he could hear was roots growing around him, okay? Because he was devastated. That was his man, his man, his man. I don't know what Armand ever thought was going to happen between him and Lestat. He knew Lestat was down bad for Nicholas. And Armand, you could never. I'm sorry, Armand. I'm sorry. And basically Santi is getting on Lestat's nerves and Lestat is getting on Santi's nerves because, again, Lestat is not going to be bound by the script. Later in the episode, Armand says, listen, you can't script a hurricane, and you can't. And you can't. But Santi in his mind talking about he about to break the fifth law. Well, go on and break it, Santi, so we can get rid of you too. All right. And so basically we find out the origin from Lestat's purview of how he and Louis met. Now, we all remember in season 1, Louis talks about how Lestat was hunting him, right? He was everywhere he was. And in this recitation or recollection of events, Lestat is saying the opposite. It was Louis, honey, whose thoughts were screaming at him that he wanted him. And so basically Lestat offers Louis immortality and companionship. Okay. And as he's going in on this, honey, one of the soldiers in the audience decides he's going to make a slur, right? He's going to say it loud with his whole chest. Next thing we know, in true vampire fashion, Lestat is right behind that man and broke him down like a fraction. When I tell you he told all his business, oh, you tried to go AWOL. You left your companions. Your buddy right here don't have an arm because you decided to abandon him. He said, now, what are you most disgusted by now? Okay, back to the story. I said, give it to Lestat, honey. Give it to Lestat. And so we're continuing on, and he talks about how Louis didn't take to vampirism. Lestat is trying to humanize him, which I thought was very interesting because even in all of this, we know that in whatever way Lestat knows how to love something, right? He loved Louis down bad. He did. Toxic and all. Toxic and all. And so, of course, Santi doesn't want him using Louis's name at all. Right? The accused is what he would prefer. But again, Lestat has a motive in this storytelling. He absolutely does. And honestly, I could still see Lestat's care for him. But again, every portrait that we've been painted up to this point has been from the perspective of Louis, right? And we know that Louis's memory cannot be trusted present day. And so I really love that. And thank you guys. Shout out to the subs who are down in the comments who were mindful of that this entire season. Like, hey, remember, this is all Louis's version of events. Thank you for that because it came full circle in this episode. And so Louis threatened Lestat with loneliness, honey, left out the house, was mad. We know what happened, the events of that night, and came back with Claudia because we know that Louis had the folks set the city on. Well, he didn't have them, but he incited the people. Basically, he pissed them off too bad, and they burnt everything up. And so he felt responsible. And when Claudia saw him, she said, "This is my black angel." And so, he needed her turned. He wanted her turned. And so now, though, we kind of figure out the real story from Lestat's point of view. And the fact that Lestat literally prophesied every single thing that would happen with Claudia was almost heartbreaking. But we also saw Louis say, I'll give you whatever you want. I will never leave again. Just do this for me. And the fact that Louis actually tried to turn her without even knowing the process, in this moment, Lestat does take accountability and responsibility and says, listen, I was the one who made her. I was. Okay. And so again, Claudia is just looking like, what are you doing? It's just devastating. Okay. and said, Lestat said he did not want it. He resisted making her because, he knew about the great laws. And Louis said, F the great laws. We need Claudia to live. Child, Louis really, again, started the process of turning Claudia. And again, I feel lied to at this point. I don't know what to believe. I don't know if anything that Louis has told us up to this point we can deem as truth, right? And so Lestat says he basically told Louis in that moment, you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. And absolutely he did. And so Lestat says, I violated the laws too, along with them. So when you basically convict them, you're convicting me as well. And Santi's like, no, Lestat, that's not the situation. You know what the people do. In present day, Louis, now he's going through it. And he says, listen, Daniel, you're going to have to believe Lestat's version of events because honestly, I don't know. And so now Lestat is back and he's talking about Claudia's growth and how, she did the most. She made a mess of New Orleans. She was reckless in her hunts and she's an artful predator, but she left for 7 years. And he says that, of course, during this time, Louis completely withdrew. He was not the same person that he was before. But he said he saw his perfect vampire nature in Claudia, that she was artful as a predator, artful as a vampire. And I believe everyone echoes those sentiments that Claudia was an excellent vampire. She was everything that you would think and need in a vampire, of course, except the way she presented age-wise. And again, I'm like, is this the real Louis, honey? Because Claudia comes back and he's like, she devised a plan for them to leave me. And this is when we see the outer space fight, right? Where he drops him from outer space. Claudia said, like, he drops you like an egg from an airplane. And I felt like, again, we were interdimensional, right? With that drop that time. But we actually get to see more insight into this brawl and what really happened, honey. Because Louis said he chop off Lestat's head and feed it to the lions, walk it to the zoo to feed it to the lions. And from what we saw, Lestat did try to practice restraint, but Louis wanted to smoke. And honey, he gave it to him. But this was probably the most emotional moment for me when Lestat actually takes accountability and responsibility in the breaking of Louis. He was like, listen, the reason he's broken now is because I broke him. Santi ain't like that. Lestat teared up. He looked back at Louis and was crying and emotional, and Claudia is like, he's still hurting you though, Louis. Like, this is nothing new. And so present day Louis, of course, is like, well, I didn't believe anything Lestat said anymore. We were on trial. I was thinking about Claudia and me, but I know he felt that. I know he felt that. But to me, it felt like a true apology from Lestat. It did. And so, of course, Armand present day got to interrupt and say, he was doing all this, but he didn't really. Armand, shut up. How you know? Lestat ain't never loved you. Okay. Never. And so in this moment, Claudia gets up and she's like, listen, can I cry and say sorry too? Will y'all forgive me? Cut Achilles' heel and all that. She says, listen, if I get up here and cry and pretend that I'm sorry, will y'all forgive me? It's just sick. And she's like, you know what? I don't even know why I bother. Lestat, you ain't come here for me. It's always been about the two of you. It has never been about me. And in this moment, Claudia is speaking nothing but facts. It's never been about her. She was an accessory. What do you call her? A throw pillow. And she was. Louis was so wrapped up in the idea of maintaining a piece of his humanity that he devastated another life. Sure, Claudia would have been unalive then, but she wouldn't have gone through the pain that she's going through now, right? And the suffering that she's endured her entire time, as a vampire. And so Madeline's been very quiet. She's been almost glamored, very out of it. And I don't know, maybe it's because she is the youngest, vampire there. But she finally comes to and she's like, are we on trial? And Claudia's like, this is not a trial. This is a stoning. All right. This is a stoning. And Claudia gets up and she confesses. She's like, listen, I poisoned him, but he's still alive. But come on and do what y'all can do so Lestat can have his vengeance. So now we get basically to the time where they're going to determine guilty of whatever laws. And so immediately guilty, Claudia, of course, Louis guilty, but Madeline, they're like, okay, you were just an ignorant vampire. You didn't know any better. So we give you the option. You can come join our coven, which Claudia actually gives her a nod of approval. Like go ahead, sis. Like, you don't deserve to be caught up in this. But Madeline gets up on her two cut ankles and says, listen, Claudia's my coven. All right. And so I'm a ride with you. And so now it's time for sentencing. Right. And so the people guilty, kill them, take them out, unalive them for both Madeline and Claudia. When we get to quiet, Santi looking around like, what's going on? And we see Armand in the booth straining. So, you know, he done took over the minds of all them people in that theater. And my thing is, Armand, really? Really? But you couldn't do it for nobody else? All right. Lies and deception. And so basically they pronounce banishment on Louis. And so Louis is ripped from Claudia. And this was kind of a heartbreaking scene too, because in this moment, I do feel as though we really see the love that he has for her and his inability to protect her. In this moment, we've seen him miss opportunities to protect her in the past, which is why she's in this predicament today. But in this moment, it was palpable. Probably because we could see it and we could feel it. You know what I mean? And so now that they're gone, it's basically Lestat, the other vampires, Madeline, Claudia on the stage. And Claudia says, could I have a final request? And Santi's like, you don't get it. And Lestat says, give her what she wants. Gentleman with the top hat, please take it off. She says, listen, I see all y'all faces now. So if there's an afterlife or what, just know I'm coming for you. I'm going to take all of y'all out. Okay? Just know that. And so she kind of cradles Madeline in her arms, honey, as they get the telescopic micro or whatever to shoot the sun in on the theater floor. And honey, she goes out with a smile singing her song about the bouncing ball and the open windows, which everyone knew that earlier in the season when she was playing that character on stage and singing that song and meeting her end, that was going to come back into play. But I thought it was very poetic for her to be singing the song as she's literally turning into dust. Okay. Again, they lock Louis up downstairs, fill a coffin with rocks and put him in the little container and write his name on it. And I said, y'all shouldn't have done that. Louis finna break out. So y'all, overall thoughts on the episode. This was my favorite episode of the season. This was a true penultimate episode. Do you hear me? Interview with a Vampire has not failed me in season 2, not one bit. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are. But I felt all the emotion. I felt all the care. Again, whatever Lestat sold, I bought it. I think he came and I think he did tell the truth. I think he told the truth of things. And seeing him, even in the moment where Claudia is, being taken by the sun, I felt the hurt in his eyes. Like at the end of the day, he was still her maker. You know what I mean? And so no matter their relationship and the fact that I don't think he loved her like a father would love a child, I think there was still this immense sense of loss. But it's like, what do you do? She did try to take you out. Now, Lestat is still toxic. He's still abusive. He's still all those things. But he came and he delivered this episode. Okay. As far as next week, y'all know Louis finna be on a payback tour. And I cannot wait. Burn them all. Burn it all down, baby. Burn it down. But drop in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of this episode. And if you're still here after almost 19 minutes, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. And I will see y'all in the next video.